Redditors who found out a close family friend or family member was a sexual predator or abuser. How did you find out? And how did you handle the situation? Not safe for work, part 2. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My cousin was molested by my uncle. I'm the only other person who knows beside my cousin's therapist. My uncle is a mess. His mom only hears from him when he wants money, but I guess no one's heard from him in a while. I hope he's dead. I had an old acquaintance who molested his younger sister. He said it was consensual, but nobody believes that. He called me late one night to ask to stay with me as he hid from the police. I told him to F off and never spoke to him again. He was in jail for a bit, but I don't know if he's out anymore. Found out my uncle had been sexually abusing his daughter not that long ago. Didn't really know what to do, honestly, besides removing him from all social media and from him being able to contact me. Craziest part was, his wife knew for years, and she still wanted to be with him. My grandfather, not by blood, but my dad's adopted dad, molested his young nieces and preteen girls at the Catholic school at which he was the principal. My dad molested women who worked for him. Happy to say my siblings are not continuing that toxic cycle. No one talks about it. My grandfather died when I was 10, and my dad had multiple strokes, so he wouldn't probably even remember it, but before that, he was a narcissistic, compulsive liar, so wouldn't admit to it anyway. Thankfully, not directly related to this person, he was molesting his granddaughter. Unfortunately, due to worries about his granddaughter's father might react, 100% would most likely kill the guy, not many people knew. The family has cut ties with him indefinitely. I wish they would file a report on him. Who knows who else he has or may abuse. We found out my dad had touched a few kids when he was arrested while we were all doing yard work. He was slated to conduct my sister's wedding a matter of months later. He just got released after a 13-year sentence. According to the victims, he never did anything but over-the-clothes stuff, but his youngest victim was like 4. Still makes me cringe to this day. He was good friends with most of the victims' parents or families. One of his victims' school counselors found out and reported him. The police came and searched the house for kiddie porn within a couple of days of his arrest. Most awkward hour of my life sitting in my living room with a cop staring at us while some other agents searched his house. Using my throwaway. My paternal grandfather sexually abused my aunt for several years when she was younger. Not sure how old, I think somewhere in the 9 to 12 range. I found out after he died. My mother, consummate gaslighter that she is, made an offhand comment about it, and when I expressed shock, swore up and down that she had told me years ago. Obviously, she did not. I assumed that my dad had asked her not to say anything, and she let it slip. Anyway, I wasn't very close to him, but he was around for much of my life, passing away when I was about 18. The sad thing is, knowing what kind of man he was, it didn't surprise me. He was abusive to all 5 of the children, divorced his wife after 30 years, was an alcoholic and a gambler who was disbarred after embezzling tens of thousands from his law firm. It did explain a lot of the tension among my father and his siblings when it came to the elder care for both my grandfather and grandmother. My dad effectively cared for them both, while the other 4 siblings refused to have anything to do with them. That's when I finally understood why. A few years ago, it came out that my father had molested my cousin when she was 5 and living in our house. My father admitted and spent 3+ years in prison. I haven't spoken to him since. Since then, my life has turned completely upside down. Demons I had conquered were once again banging on my door. I felt as though everything I had believed or learned in life was a lie. There have been other factors that ripped out from this event that have fed into my downward spiral. This was the tip. It's taken a long time for me to even realize that I've changed and not for the better. Sorry. Whenever I got to middle school, my mom told me my uncle had been seriously creeping on girls my age when he was a basketball coach. He was beat up by a parent and got serious death threats for years, which was why he had to move near us in the country. I never really spoke to him again. I haven't seen him in nearly 6 years now. Anytime I do see him, I just look away. He was always an asshole, so it's fine. I was the victim. My cousin molested me for years, and when I finally spoke up, it divided the family. Half of them accused me of being jealous. My cousin was a seminary student and the golden child, and the other half took my side. We no longer had Thanksgiving or Christmas gatherings after this, and some of my more spiteful relatives told me outright I had ruined the family. It ended up being a worse mess when my mother pressed charges and we had to do court. He got off of the charges for the most part, no registry or anything. That messed me up for a long time because it felt like the system was telling me, we believe you, but you aren't important enough to deserve justice. It took 6 years of therapy for me to move on and accept that none of it was my fault and that the system failed me. Found out that a friend of ours had been arrested for abusing his stepdaughter when we started getting phone calls telling us to watch the news. Sure enough, he was on the local news. We severed all ties at that point and haven't spoken to him since. There's just no coming back from something like that. He ended up serving just 2 years as well. About 15 years ago, I did computer repair for this nice older gentleman. He was super nice, kept a clean and tidy house, and had a modest but well-spec'd home theater system that he had no idea how to operate. I spent a lot of time with him, documenting steps to do different things with his HT system, and showing him how to keep his computer running fast. Never once did I come across any questionable shit on his computer, which is, to be honest, extremely rare. I've seen some shit, let me tell you. Or in his media collection, DVDs at the time. The most bizarre thing about the guy was this idea he had a memory box that he was convinced could be marketed as a keepsake item and that all the world's retailers were overlooking. It took him a year to share the idea with me because he was so paranoid about someone stealing it. Very weird, but also very common. About 50% of my customers had some crazy business idea they were convinced I could help them with because I was good with computers. This went on for about 3 years. He always paid me well and was very understanding when I didn't have extra time. Just all around very nice guy. Then one day, I see him on the news. He was charged and convicted with the abuse of 2 family members' children under the age of 7. At first, I was shocked, but I didn't think it would affect me. I really struggled with it for a while though. I spent so much time with this guy. I had unfettered access to his computer. Why didn't I recognize that something was wrong? Couldn't I have done something to help prevent this from happening? Rationally, I know it wasn't my responsibility, but just thinking about what he did to those kids, I was so angry. I felt betrayed, and I felt like I had failed somehow. I just had to come to grips with the fact that you cannot always see it coming. Some people are really, really good at hiding their sickness. It left me very terrified of just how difficult it is to know who you can trust with children. Distant cousin was sexually assaulted multiple times by his older cousin when they were both minors. Think about 8 and 12. He sued him recently in the hopes that he would just pay a fee and keep it secret. First thing the idiot did was tell his dad, and shortly after the whole family knew. Charges had to be dropped because it was impossible to prove, and it would have been a long and costly process. He said, however, that the whole family knows what a piece of shit the guy is, satisfaction enough, and he got closure. My mother's father was an odd cat, a disgusting drunk, drug fiend, wannabe biker. He sat home while my grandmother worked in the laundry room of a local hospital. He always had porn mags laying around and would play porn VHS tapes in the living room TV when Nana was working. Mind you, us kids, who were under 10, were there as well while porno played on the TV. He had hustler pics hanging in the spare bedroom, would make disgusting comments to every woman he saw. Well, in the late 70s, my mother got pregnant with me at 14, and people speculated that her father was the one who impregnated her. I later had a DNA test and found out Gramps was not my dad, thank God. In the mid-80s, my mother committed suicide when I was about 7 years old, and I found out later in life from her friends that he tried and had indeed been sexually molesting her, probably one of the main factors in her suicide. She left a note insisting I stay with my paternal grandparents, who were great people. She didn't want me near her father. My biological father was a loser and didn't give 2 shits about me before all this, but now my mom died, he wanted the social security check I got. He strong-armed me to move in with him, so he didn't have to pay child support basically, and he, too, my dad, was preying on his wife's younger sister of 14 and was giving me notes to give to her on the school bus. He would say he was going to the store and pick her up walking and have sex with her in the car. She talked, and word got out, but he denied it, and nothing happened, especially after the accusation. He flipped out and shot a rifle off in the house. I thought he had blown his head off, but he just shot the wall to distract everyone from his dirty deed. My dad split with my stepmom and later got remarried, and his new wife hired a 14-year-old girl to babysit her younger kids. Well, Dad got her as well, and she told her father about it. Well, my dad finally got arrested for his disgusting deeds and went to prison for only a couple of years. Karma caught up with him when, shortly after prison, he was cutting down some trees and they fell on him and killed him. When my older sister was around 8, she told one of our neighbors that my father was abusing her. During the trial, our mother could either take her side or his, and she decided to back him, therefore branding my sister a liar. When I was old enough to know why my sister had to be far from us in a foster house and why people would come to our house to check if we were okay, I was told my sister lied about something important, and that was it. When I was 15, 2 years after having moved out, my older sister, who was now 20, revealed my father had been abusing her since she was about 5. Oddly enough, I was really calm and I mostly felt apologetic that it happened under everyone's nose and I wasn't able to spot it nor stop it. I cut him off completely. Same for his side of the family that supported him through the first and then the second trial. We gave some room for our mother to apologize, but she never stopped victimizing herself in the situation rather than taking responsibility for what she let happen. The police gave her proof of CP being on his computer, and she still chose to back him, thinking that it only happened once. When I still lived with her and he wasn't in prison yet, she'd tell me I should still go see him as he's still my father. They're now both completely out of my life. The hardest part is knowing I had a completely different childhood from my sister and knowing if one day I had opened a door I shouldn't, I could have saved her from all of this.